Hello, Amit.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
I'm just trying to see if I have a kind of. I know you're obviously Blake Carrington, and you're used to like that, that look, that dynasty look, which is a bit, But my camera seems to be like that as well this week. So let me have a quick look. No, it's just the lighting. It's clearly the lighting. Yeah. So we both look like that, and we've got a whole dynasty look. Not that we're aging ourselves talking about dynasty, straight off the bat.
Well, I mean, I did have that whole Blake Carrington wallpaper that was created for me this time last year when we were all stuck at home in COVID, which was kind of amusing for a few seconds.
Perfect. How you doing? How's your week been? Good?
Yeah, good sort of Eid break and had a few things going on. Yourself?
Yes, all good. Yep. Nice to be back in the saddle, as it were, after a couple of days break there. So I think locally, guys, we had an Eid holiday that so few kind of office shutdowns for the last few days, and still the rest of the region's kind of getting back to work. So I think just while we wait for a few people dropping in now, it's good to see. So welcome to Growth Show, guys. This is our weekly show that obviously occasionally we won't be there. So we get reminded as well. We've got some regulars and we've also got new people coming every week. So thank you very much for the support for those of you watching and listening. But essentially we kind of do this on a weekly basis, have been doing it for close to a year now. Started it up kind of when COVID started to hit. But I think we've got some cool stuff to talk about today, right?
Yeah, we've got actually. It's interesting. I think again, while people are dropping in, we'll a little bit of context, but it's been really interesting. I think we had an internal chat about this a couple of days back with some of the team, and it almost feels like the narrative of what's going around us has just changed somewhat in the last, I'd say, few months, but I'd say especially more so in the last few weeks. And, I think a lot of people are obviously kind of beyond that survival stage.
Yeah.
And the way that we're kind of hearing people talk about sort of business in the market now is they're at that almost revival stage, right?
Yeah.
Where okay, they've survived.
Yeah. Still here.
Consolidated, perhaps even grown, but now how do you really kind of revive, the business and take it to another level? And I think it's good because, again, all the local surveys and news stories and all of that kind of stuff that we see all the time, plus on a kind of wider scale as well, internationally, we're seeing a lot more people talking about, opportunities. We're seeing a lot more people talking about, again, the cool stuff like, disruption, technology, and the kind of things which I wouldn't say that we forgot.
We didn't have time to think about.
Yeah,
didn't have time to think about it, right?
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of things like this were put to the back burner, right?
Yeah.
It was more about how do we get through this, and now we've got through it. It's all about, I think, scale now. So So I think that's been really kind of pleasing, and obviously I think with travel corridors and things like that happening, and people now having a bit more kind of freedom of movement, vaccine rollouts, I think it's really sort of positive news. So actually. I think what we want to be talking about over the next few weeks, I think very much comes on the back of this.
I guess, we can do, so obviously, you guys know that are watching the show, obviously, because you kind of found out about what we're going to be talking about today. But essentially, it's we're kind of breaking that down right over the next few months. We're going to take a bit of a deep dive into industries that are almost ripe for disruption, right? Feel as though they're coming out the other side, and kind of what is it that they've done, what they haven't done, is there still opportunities there? And we've kind of cherry picked 5, right, on the back of a report that was released locally.
Yeah, and that report I think was just very timely. I think again, like what we're saying here, it really comes down to, I don't know, I felt as if maybe this time last year we were a little bit more forgiving of brands.
Right.
I think we were a little bit more kind of, okay, look, people have got to survive. We're in that mode. So, I certainly was answering more cold calls than I normally would have.
Yeah.
But it's got to that point where I'm certainly getting more irritated by stuff like that now. Again, people are busy. There's a lot going on. And so therefore, it was interesting to see a a study or a survey where the results really spoke about consumer trust, right? In terms of who do we trust, who don't we trust, who do we want to do business with, who don't we want to do business with. And I like that because, again, essentially, we're out there, we're talking to clients, we're advising different types of businesses in terms of, perhaps what they should be doing in today's kind of more modern digital sort of technology driven era, while also not forgetting the human element. And I think what happens is a lot of industries sometimes go too fast in one direction, right? Which is where they say, right, we're going to digitize our business and our offering, which is cool, but then they forget about the human side to it, right? So they almost go too far. And then you've got the other side of it, which is where they just don't do anything, right? Because they don't know any better, or perhaps they just feel as if, well, people need us.
Element of arrogance and fear, possibly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the idea, I think, for the next 5 weeks for sure, and then we'll sort of see how it goes from there, is to really kind of take a deep dive in those industries that are really kind of highlighted as those that people don't really trust so much. See where they've gone wrong, see what the opportunities are, but also not limit conversation, I'd say, to those industries, right? I think there's so many similarities across so many industries, but I think even people in sort of similar industries, or, especially sort of customer first industries, where I think there'll be some good sort of learnings and takeaways from that as well.
Oh, good. That's good. Yeah. Well, I guess before we get into a deep dive, what's caught your eye this kind of last week? What's floated to the top as far as element of interest?
Clubhouse, I think let's touch on that. I think that's been interesting because we were massive sort of huge Clubhouse freaks, advocates. I've got to say now, the only times I've been on Clubhouse in the last 2 weeks, I've accidentally pressed the notification as it's popped up on my phone. But again, this is now reflecting in users, and it's really interesting because I genuinely felt this had maybe perhaps longer legs than what it's playing out to be. And it might be because of the notifications. It's now turning into a bit of an irritant, but the numbers are very interesting. So in April, the app was downloaded 922,000 times, which is an 89% reduction from what that number was in February.
Right. Okay.
Right. So we were talking about huge sort of, what was that, $10 billion valuations not so long ago.
Feb,
so I think it'd be interesting.
And they just released Android.
Well, I think, they need
Friday,
to,
right?
Yeah. But I almost feel as if they've missed the trick of that and done it a couple of months too late.
I mean, I don't know why it's taken that long.
Yeah, it's weird.
I mean, the way that obviously, I mean, we know how apps are built now, and if you're, I mean, honestly, it's not that much of an intelligent app, right? It's there's some basic functionality in there, but it seems odd that they've taken this amount of time to roll out to Android for sure. Months. I mean, it seems very odd. I turned off notifications last week, just because it was just getting irritating. Like I said, I mean, I limit notifications to things like email and things like that, but it was always on my notification list, but now I'm kind of like, no. And
I think again, if we go back to user experience, sometimes it's just adapting it. So they obviously had something that was very successful and very popular. Okay, and but the notifications haven't changed. No. Right. So if we look at that, right. Exactly. So I still get the best one, and I was thinking about it the other day, and I had a notification from Guti, right, who used to play for Real Madrid. It's not your world, unfortunately. Right? I don't know what you're talking about. So successful footballer, Champions League winner, played for Real Madrid.
Right.
And then when you get a notification saying Guti wants to start a room with you to talk about football, I'm like, well, he doesn't, does he? Literally. Literally, I support.
But imagine if you genuinely wanted to, and you just were like, no, you don't, mate. Right. And you're like, no.
And the point is like, okay, again, let's just change that, because that's the same notification that I was getting a few months back, but now I laugh at it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, okay. So I think it will be interesting to see how that plays out.
I think also that it plays into the fact that people are getting busier again. Like going back to what you're saying at the beginning, people are getting busier, and I know, Clubhouse, I'd spend an hour plus on it.
Right.
You kind of end up walking the dog, and the dog's legs are about to fall off because you're walking around listening to Clubhouse. So I think also people don't necessarily have that time available to themselves anymore, right? I mean, there were some people on there that were doing marathon sessions, like what do you call them? What are the people on stage? Not handlers.
No, the hosts.
Hosts, yeah. Like, I mean, there were some people on there who were doing like 10-hour shifts a day.
Yeah.
People that were around the clock in Australia, and it seemed insane. Like, how could you do that? How could you focus so much energy? And I think at a time,
Bitcoin.
Sorry,
it's because they got Bitcoin.
Because they got Bitcoin, yeah, exactly. They're all dark lord crypto traders, like hanging around in the background on the edge of crypto. But yeah, I mean, just having that much time available to yourself, I think, is obviously possibly being spent elsewhere now.
Yeah.
Well, we'll keep an eye on it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Talking of Bitcoin, there's a lot of smug Bitcoin traders out there, and they just seem to be sort of coming to the fray now because prices started to drop a little bit.
Yeah, well, a little bit. It just wipes out.
Yeah,
like,
so it's quite funny. One of my neighbors, and actually I don't know him personally, but I know he lives 3 or 4 doors down from me. We're on the same Facebook group, and you know, and one of the kind of guys on the group was talking about Bitcoin and how it's crashing, and he was like, well, you know, if you got in 2013, it's fine, and everyone just ignores him. So he's obviously feeling like, okay, well, I need to now maybe show off a little bit more. And he's like, yeah, I bought a ton of Bitcoin in 2013. And everyone's like, okay, cool, well done. And I still got it. And it's like, okay, I mean, like literally, what is it you want?
Yeah,
I mean, but I'm seeing more of those kind of pop up on my social feeds and stuff, which is great.
There's a massive. I mean, look across all the social channels. There's people talking about. I think you know, ways to make money. You know, and in the online space, that's what it seems to be. There seems to be not a day goes by without a story of somebody. I mean, I quite like the Doge guy that turned 100K into 1.3 million or whatever, and now it's over 2 million, which I thought was quite interesting. Yeah. He's pretty cool. Like, I think that's, you know, stories like that. But I think obviously those get rich quick schemes usually are schemes, right? So, and there's no sustainability associated to that.
Absolutely.
So
what's caught your eye?
I'd actually, there was a couple of things that I thought it was interesting. There was one here that I picked up that Microsoft Teams seems to be, you know, trying to shoulder barge themselves into our personal life as well. So I guess, you know, out there in the market, it's you're either on Teams or Zoom. Some people are on WebEx, some people are on Greet or Meet or whatever, Google Meet. And obviously, you know, that's the kind of preferred communication type now for a lot of business. But now Microsoft Teams have come out and said, hey, listen, you know, not just restricted to business activity, you can use Teams for free. So you can use it more like a WhatsApp, right? To communicate with your friends, your family. But guess what? There's other functionality on there. So it's kind of, they're going after WhatsApp a bit as kind of a WhatsApp killer, as it were. So, you know, you can do collaborative to-dos, you can do group callings, team callings. So I think it'll be interesting, especially in kind of the Middle East where WhatsApp calling and things like that is blocked, whereas Teams is open because it's a business application. So it would be interesting to see if there's that migration across to, you know, because we see it the other way around. We saw it pre-COVID, especially where people were using WhatsApp to run business off the back of it, right? And it's not designed for that specifically, obviously, whereas Teams is business first, and now it's kind of pushed over to that space. So I just wondered if you know, you're obviously on family chats and group chats, and we're on group chats ourselves, right? Mates chats and business chats.
Never on Teams.
No, but I'm wondering now if it's okay, you know, do we look at Teams, right? Because you can jump on a call with them and things like that.
It's taken long enough to get some of my family how to use Zoom. Like, I mean, I'm not joking. When you've got uncles and aunts all over the world in their 60s and 70s, I'm not going through that again.
Just a heartache. Even though it'd be one tool, right? It's just stick to Zoom. But you're still using WhatsApp to share Zoom, right?
This is true, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's one application.
Let's not complicate things, mate. Well, I tell you, you brought up Microsoft, which was very unscheduled and not on our list of things to talk about. So let me kind of talk about something. I don't know how I either missed this or forgot about it and stuff. But August 1997. Microsoft invested $150 million in Apple, just as Apple were, you know, really kind of fighting bankruptcy. Did you know that?
I'm trying to, but what, from a software perspective or
invested? They invested. So what basically happened is this is when Steve Jobs was just brought back in.
Yes, yeah.
Fighting a bit of a battle in terms of, you know, trying to keep Apple afloat.
Yeah.
And reached out to Bill Gates directly and said, listen, invest in Apple.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they did essentially, right? Bought $150 million worth of stock. So it wasn't a direct sort of cash payment. It was like, we're going to buy some stock. And the reason I kind of thought about today was just because obviously with what's been going on with Bill Gates and, you know, that kind of end of an era, even more so of an era now, you know, with what's going on in his life and all the stuff that's coming out of Microsoft now. It just makes you think that, right? If had he not done that, where would Apple have been? Because that kind of helped lay the foundations for the iPad and all of those elements, right?
Yeah, and the iPhone and everything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But then I was like, obviously, you know, thinking, Christ, how much is that worth? Right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, so interesting. But what happened as part of the agreement, they had to go and sell the stock again in 2003.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So they hadn't, but had they sort of kept that stock today?
Yeah.
Okay. How much do you reckon it'd be worth?
150 million at the time.
150 million in 97.
I don't know, 4 or 5 billion.
Yeah, so 52.6 billion.
Really?
But they had to sell as part of a deal.
Wow.
But super interesting, right? I mean, just
that's nice.
So Bill Gates not only, you know, created the software industry as we kind of know it today, but pretty much saved Apple as well.
But I mean, speaking of Apple, that was my other like interesting story, which was, have you upgraded to the latest iOS?
I haven't yet.
You haven't?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So I did. I used to be that person that never upgraded anything. But through years of James Pikeway moaning at me on the tech show about, listen, you need to update stuff, right? You're the tech guy, you need to update stuff. Right. But it's more of a legacy thing. I think back in the days of using PCs, you kind of always thought you could fix stuff. So it was like, don't worry about upgrading stuff. But I've been seeing open a new application. It says, hey, listen, we want to track you across other apps. Is that all right with you?
Right.
And I'm like, no, it's not. But it's quite surprising the apps that are doing it, right? It's pretty much every single one. So this was on the back of, I guess, about a month ago, we spoke about the new privacy laws that were being put in place specifically around tracking through different applications on the device. And Apple are very much at the forefront of.
Yeah, and this goes back to Facebook and Zuckerberg having a real moan about this.
Having a moan about it, saying small businesses are going to be, exactly. Right. Small businesses are going to be in trouble. Yeah. You know, you've got to allow this tracking to know interest-based activity and all this kind of stuff. But it's just interesting. So, it just pops up and it says, hey, listen, do you want to allow it or not allow it? Yeah. So it's not even similar to where it's allow once or anything like that. It's pretty much black and white. Do you even know how to turn it back on or off, if that makes sense. Oh, wow. It's just interesting to see how that played out. And then also on the back of that, it doesn't seem to be just me. So it's not, my paranoia. They're saying that 4%, only 4% of iPhone users have agreed to app tracking after the latest update. 4%. Okay.
So okay, let's talk about this in real terms then. So what's the impact of this on the likes of Facebook and?
Well, I mean, basically, what it does is it just narrows the targeting capabilities, right? Narrows the audience. Okay. I think there's other ways that they are tracking. For example, on the Facebook and Instagram platform, you could always track by recent travel. Yeah. So, have people who have recently traveled to this country or recently done this, you could always do that. So obviously now things like that are just not going to be allowed on those platforms. It's still available on Android. Sure. So, and Android now globally is the dominant iOS, platform. So they're still going to be able to track through there. And because I guess Google are not overly bothered as much as Apple have kind of said, no, this is your privacy, this is your security. But it's going to be an impact for sure. There's going to be an impact in how advertisers can go after certain individuals, I guess, right? But I think a lot of this, to a certain extent, is unnecessary as well. It's a bit of a land grab, right? I think because people use their phone, they trust it, it's in their pocket, it's on their bedside table at night. They kind of almost have this thing that they trust the people that are building apps for you as well, right? But people don't know you're getting tracked everything you do, right? I don't know if you've ever gone back in and pulled up your Google Map history. It's creepy as hell. Like it tracked everything, right?
Well, I started seeing signs of that because, every Tuesday we come here to the road.
Yes.
Right.
Did you get a suggestion?
As soon as I open Google Maps, the first listing that comes up is you're 18 minutes away from Rove downtown.
Really?
Yeah. So it knows on a Tuesday, but it doesn't show up on a Monday. Right.
Okay.
Doesn't show up on any other day, just on Tuesday. It knows I'm going to make that same journey.
It wants to help you.
Sorry?
It wants to help you.
It's probably thinking, this guy does this trip every bloody week. Why is he opening Google
Maps? Why is he opening Google Maps?
But I mean, it just shows, right? They're not just tracking what you're doing, what you're viewing, all that kind of stuff, but that's behavioral tracking, right? Which I think is, even more creepy.
Yeah, but I mean, I think
he knows what you're doing before you do.
Well, it goes back to the point, do you embrace these sort of things, or do you run away from them, right? I mean, I'm not overly keen on. I've started seeing the integration into calendar. So when book flights, hotels are going now, that just auto populates.
Yeah, which because Google are reading every email.
Yeah, I know, but still, it's kind of like, again, I'm not, I'm not overly keen on that. I'd prefer to kind of build out my own schedule, as it were.
Yeah.
But I know, for example, James loves that.
Yeah, well, you
absolutely loves it.
You're going to miss less flights, right?
Amazing. What if I get your shoes polished?
Anyway. So, Andrew, 20 minutes in, I think we've
done the news to death.
I think so. Let's focus back on this kind of core topic that we're talking about. And then look, I've just had a look. We've got a couple of recruiters that I know of, and there might be more watching the show. So look, a bit of a disclaimer, caveat.
Yeah, we'll see.
This is very kind of generic.
Yeah.
And we're not obviously speaking specifically about your business, but what really kind of brought this to light again was that news story. And actually not just that, I'd had some conversations with people within the industry over the last couple of months.
Yeah.
And there's that kind of scenario that they work with in the sense of, it's really difficult now. Our business is really competitive.
Specifically around recruitment, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about just recruiters.
I mean, that's the first industry we're looking at is recruitment, right?
Yeah,
and customer trust, consumer trust.
Yeah. And just in case you guys unfairly think I'm kind of attacking your industry, my wife works for Corn Ferry. So executive search and
small organization.
Right, so yeah. So I may not get dinner tonight, but the point is this isn't obviously designed to attack an industry. It's more designed to kind of look, what other possibilities, what other capabilities, that recruiters could possibly look at, what challenges do they face, and potentially how that applies to other businesses, right? And I think this is kind of, again, it's more about what we can do to help as opposed to, the opposite, right? I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, look, I think it'd be interesting to kind of hear your perspective on this first, mate. So like, in terms of maybe what the current problem is, I mean, so just for more context, if you haven't read the article, I think we pasted it to the email. Recruiters came out as the least trusted profession. Okay.
Yeah.
Some more caveats to that. It's, it was different for different sort of demographics and nationalities, but across the board, this is what came out as almost like number one. So what's your kind of experience and where do you see where the problem is, if there is a problem in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to separate out the kind of different levels of recruitment. So I think obviously, executive search is different from general recruitment, I think, as well. And there's obviously different layers associated to, mass, construction workers, I need 1,000 plumbers on a job site, recruitment versus, senior positions, whatever, or industry specific recruiters, a whole host of things. So I think it's important to look at that and see how that shakes down as well, right? How that splits the room, as it were. Because again, the traditional recruitment phase is I guess it's one of those tasks that is there again to aid us, right, as business owners, business operators, across the board, and in the past, it's almost been a bit, not cloak and dagger, but kind of hidden, right? So as far as how they go about recruiting certain individuals, how you find certain individuals, how they go about determining who those individuals are. So I guess it's one of those industries that isn't kind of publicly known or publicly traded as such. You're only ever engaged with that business either when you want to kind of look for a job or you're you need someone for a role, right? It's not one of those things that you regularly engage in, I guess. Sure. It's kind of one of the things that you dip in and out of, unless, like I said, unless you're working for, a company that, like a bank or something, that has kind of that turnover. Right. And, but ordinarily kind of, I guess, in the business space, it's one of those industries that people dip in and out of. Yeah. And I guess possibly previously didn't pay as much attention to, let's say.
So I think we've got to look at it in two ways then, right? So you've got one problem then potentially, or one area of recruitment, which is to support businesses.
Yep.
And I think the other side of it, and I think let's make some assumptions here. I think the challenge here is that this was a consumer survey. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
So these are possibly employees
versus employers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so from an employee perspective, perhaps their touch points with recruiters are maybe even more so than perhaps what we have. And I think, the way that we potentially look at it, or maybe need to look at it, is through platforms like LinkedIn, right, which give you the ability to contact employees, people directly.
Yeah.
To talk to them about available positions and stuff like that, right? So again, I think we probably, like what you said, I think we separate the executive search side to general kind of recruitment, and I think you also separate the employee side of it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think definitely a different lens. I mean, I think the thing is, if you're looking at it from an employee perspective, I think there's a lot of challenges around trust anyway. Especially if you're looking at an expatriate market such as Dubai, right, or the Middle East, because obviously a large expat population, a lot of people that essentially want to, kind of be here, work here, maybe the other side of the world, so have no really kind of understanding of how recruitment works, right? And I think the thing is, each country, and we've obviously dug into this a bit with some of our international hires, has their own laws, has their own protections in place, some more than others, right? And you're relying on the recruitment agency essentially to be your guide in that sense, right? And if they get that wrong from kind of day one, it's tough to trust that people, right?
So who are we talking about again? Employees or employers?
No, I'm talking from an employee perspective. So from an employee perspective, you are putting, let's talk employee first. So if you're that individual that's looking for an opportunity, you're essentially, casting a wide net, right? So you're out there, you're contacting recruiters, you're saying, here I am, what do I need to do, right? And I think the thing is that, if you look at it from a response perspective, those recruitment agencies, a lot of the time, are getting hundreds, perhaps thousands of those types of requests, right? So as much as the employee or the prospect may feel as though they're not getting, the care and attention they deserve, they're probably one of 1,000, right? So then it kind of falls back on the recruitment agencies or the employers to kind of understand, well, how do we deal with this, right?
Okay. One of the things, and I think that's important, one of the sort of things that came out on the back of this, were that employees were saying that there was a lack of transparency when it came with recruiters. And I think it might be because of that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's too many CVs or too many candidates to deal with. How do you kind of give each one of those a personalized response? How do you keep each of those in the loop, which doesn't mean having, hundreds of admin staff? So there's certainly challenges with it. I kind of looked at this. I spoke to a couple of clients about sort of this side of the business, again, a few weeks back. And one of the bits of feedback that was consistent was that it's too easy to apply for a job now.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And if we look at it from, and that's if maybe you're an employer who's directly recruiting. And we've heard it from our HR team.
Yeah.
Right. Where, sometimes we've got a job at the moment we've had 1,800 applicants for.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just.
MD and Nexa.
Sorry? MD and Nexa. Yeah. Sorry, man. I didn't want to tell you.
That's all right, mate. It's fine. It's good I find out now.
But 1,800 applicants for one role.
Yeah.
Okay. Now someone's got to go through that. And if you imagine if you're a recruiter and you've got multiple roles, how many CVs really are coming in, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the challenges where it's almost too easy for people to apply for jobs. But I don't see that changing, because if you're a LinkedIn, if you're an Indeed, if you're any of these kind of portals that help sort of facilitate this application process, Well, their objectives are very clear. And that's if someone's basically listing a job, we want to give them candidates.
Yeah.
Right. And we want to make it really easy for our candidates to apply for these jobs.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing is they're focusing all of their UX and attention on how do we make it easier for candidates? Because if we do deliver then 1,000 candidates to an employer,
happy days.
Well, we're doing our job. And I think that's interesting because I feel as if then on the back of that, what you're doing is making it really difficult for recruiters. And again, let's talk about agencies and internal HR teams, for example. You're making it really difficult for them, right? You're basically giving them so much more work to do. And we're still living in that era where everyone wants personalized service. That doesn't change. Whether we're dealing with a bank or whether we're dealing with a recruiter, we want attention. We want focus. We want people to know us. We want people to care about us, and we want that personalization. And so what you're doing is you've almost got platforms that are potentially working against the process, right? People aren't necessarily scalable, right? Systems might come in and do some sort of job, but people aren't necessarily scalable. No. So unless you do, like I said, start to hire tons and tons of admin staff, I think you've got a real kind of challenge there, and I think that's just mapping
bottleneck, right?
Yeah, it's just a bottleneck. Yeah, and let's look at that challenge is pure numbers. Okay, so that's a pure numbers challenge. I think there's also another challenge in the sense that, and again, when we looked at that list, so just to go back a step, the list of people on that survey that came out pretty poorly in it were recruiters, bankers or people who are selling credit cards,
real estate
professionals,
telemarketing,
wealth management professionals, or financial advisors, right? There's a consistent theme across all of those, and that is that a lot of those guys are very commission focused in terms of how they earn their money.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you've got that, surely that's potentially a problem as well, right? And I get it. People need to be incentivized to do their jobs, but essentially, if I'm only going to get paid by placing candidates in a job, or a large percentage of what I'm going to get back into my pocket is by doing that, then if I get 95% of the candidates being pretty poor, then I'm never going to be able to place them. What interest do I have to make sure that those guys know that I care about them? What interest do I have in kind of responding to each and every one of those? And I think that becomes a challenge, especially when you are talking about sheer volumes and stuff like that. And I don't know. I mean, maybe we've got this completely wrong, but I think those are a couple of the kind of obvious challenges. And like I said, we've got recruiters in the audience today. So if you have any kind of points, comments, if you want to slap our wrists, feel free to do so. But I think it'd be interesting to get your feedback on that. But I mean, so I think that how they get paid, so the commission perspective, a transparency piece was an issue. But I don't know. I mean, like, do you remember some of the stories that used to come out back in the day about how recruiters used to basically go to clients and say, we've got a candidate database of 10,000 people. Do you remember some of those stories? I don't know. I had some friends who used to share some of that. But.
Yeah. I mean, there was a large time of, I mean, I think the thing was that, because it is almost a lot of those industries that you just touched upon again, and for recruitment, a very personable industry. Right. As you said, I've got a Rolodex of X number of candidates, right? I've got access to these individuals, and I think where the technology is improved or the reach is improved, or, everyone's been told you've got to get a LinkedIn profile. There's basically, as you said, now it's actually pretty easy and pretty straightforward for anyone to get 10,000 people in a Rolodex, right? Quite frankly, right? Whereas back in the day, possibly it was a challenge, right? There was a lot of cold calling. I mean, I know, for example, I have recruiters reach out to me, on LinkedIn all the time, and basically saying, "Oh, listen, can you share your CV?" No. And I've spoken to a few of them, and basically their targets as well are based on how many people they can add to a database. So they'll just spend the whole day farming conversations and collecting CVs, right? Because their target for the day, listen, I need 20 fresh CVs today for managerial positions, right? I need that bank. Again, because, you know, the fact is, as you mentioned, you only successfully get paid on a placement. You know, and the wider your audience that you can fire out, hey, listen, I've got this incredible position, even though that goes out to 100 people, you've got to have those 100 people to start with, right? To even offer it out to them. And I think possibly what we're really talking about is more of the, you know, mid to high range, right? Recruiters. I think that's where we should probably focus our attention, because that's probably where we've got the most exposure as well, right? And I think the thing is that world has changed somewhat now, because you still may have relationships with particular people in HR positions, and there may be a go-to, you know, but as much as the pandemic has closed down certain borders, it's almost made the world smaller as well, right? In the sense that everyone knows what is going on everywhere in the world, because we're continually hearing about it on the news. You know, places that we would never kind of ordinarily hear about and understand, and the migration of people, you know, the change in what roles people are doing as well, and what they're looking to do. I think all has this impact, right? It all kind of staggers up, you know?
Look, one of the challenges that recruiters have mentioned to me as well is that, you know, they're struggling now to find new clients.
Yes.
Again, because it comes down to market saturation, it comes down to things like that. And I think that kind of goes into your point, you know, when we kind of talk about COVID and the pandemic, and basically, you know, it's been interesting because we've seen so many different industries who've almost kind of transformed themselves during COVID, right? Because they had to.
Yeah, right? But I mean, what do you think these guys have been up to? No one's been hiring as much. Certain industries have been hiring, right? But there's a lot that have just through in let's say in countries where there's furlough, right?
Sure.
So that's not obviously people haven't lost their roles.
Yeah.
You know, they've been forced to move into furlough. Yeah. So even if an organization wanted to recruit someone, you know, we know large organizations in London, for example, that, you know, cut back on their contracting departments, their administrative departments, and everything got delayed, right? Yeah. They weren't able to then contact somebody and say, hey, listen, I need some administrators. No, because you're paying these guys over here, right? So I'm just wondering what some of these firms have been up to in this time.
Look, I feel as if, you know, many of the firms were perhaps firefighting or trying to figure out, you know, how do we kind of save a business? Yeah. How do we kind of sustain, you know, what we're doing? How do we kind of protect what we're doing? And I'm sure a ton of them have gone back and literally said, okay, look, we need to innovate. We need to do things differently. Yeah. You know, look, even pre-pandemic, we had a few recruitment clients who we were really kind of helping, and they realized that, again, I said, look, nobody's going to be hiring for the next few months. Yeah. I think it's interesting that, I mean, it's a good question. I feel as if I've not seen any, look, I still get approached.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you fancy like leaving Nexa? You know, we've got a great opportunity. I'm like, well, fuck yeah, but who's going to sign the checks? I mean, who's going to pay the salaries? I mean, like, it's kind of what I do, right? And it's like, and it's no thinking, there's no research.
No, exactly. So zero research. So you're see, a number at that point.
Yeah, you see it and you say, well, hold on, that doesn't make sense.
No.
But you know, but I'm sure there's a lot of personalization going on. I think there must be a lot of kind of professional approach.
Yeah.
Aspects going on. I think, you know, the higher the position that you're hiring for, you know, potentially with more professionalism and personalization, all that comes into play.
Yes, of course.
Right? So I think
because it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I feel as if from everything I've seen, and I've not seen everything, there's certainly opportunities that have been missed. Okay, and I think and it's funny when you look at industries such as recruitment, when you look at, you know, similar kinds of industries, so much of it for me still relates very directly to marketing. Okay, and the way I kind of almost see this is you know, most of our engagements are with companies that are looking to sell more product, right? Yep. Sell more product, sell more service, and it's all about the funnel.
Yeah.
But I almost kind of wonder how, and what we've done is we've digitized that funnel.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wonder how recruiters have digitized their funnels, because it's exactly the same process, right?
Yeah.
You know, except for us, we perhaps want many people to come out the bottom of that. For them, it's maybe even more important to make sure that funnel works, because they're looking for that one sort of golden egg to come out the bottom of, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes them sort of valuable in terms of that process. And I just don't know how much of that process. I know there's a ton of recruitment software platforms and all that kind of stuff, but how many of those are really designed to be, I don't know, candidate friendly? Let's think about it from that perspective, right? Because again, the conversations I've had with recruiters is, how do I get more customers or clients that we can help? Not so much how do I get more candidates. Whereas if we look at the dissatisfaction in the survey, it's come from candidates.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I think the thing is, you know, most of the time, even going back way back when, you know, that people have never, I don't think any recruitment company has got a problem getting candidates. Yeah, I think it's easier than ever. Easier than ever, right? To you know, a quick LinkedIn search will be allow, you know, on Sales Navigator will allow you to, I mean, bear in mind, even in COVID, you know, LinkedIn had a particular, what do you call it? Filter, open to work, right? I mean, it was specifically like a badge on your profile, right? So I don't think there's ever a challenge when it comes to, you know, pulling or access to candidates. You know, the challenge is possibly access to the right candidates. Right.
Sure.
Because like you said on
face, that's the point, right?
Exactly. Because like you said on face value, why wouldn't I approach him?
Yeah.
He's the CEO of Nexa. Now, obviously, some of the public information on there, you could determine that actually, you're the founder because it says on there founder, right? But a lot of people are just looking at CEO, right? Bang, and whacking it in the database. Yeah. You know.
But I think this is almost like we get close to sort of chicken and egg territory with this, right?
Yeah,
and I think this is a problem again, which is relatable across industries, because recruiters want to have good relationships, and if we're talking about those better candidates, but if that candidate experience is poor, does that mean that candidate's already kind of negative towards a recruiter when they're getting approached, right? Because again, this is I think it's part of that, because again, if I, you know. Again, you know, if people are getting approached, they should perhaps feel either excited about it. It was that natural kind of, you know, that natural feeling, but perhaps they shouldn't be feeling so kind of apprehensive unless they're super satisfied in terms of where they work, right? But in terms of, they shouldn't be feeling apprehensive in terms of, okay, does this person really have my best interests at heart, right? And I think that's potentially, you know, where you might have an issue. Maybe not now, but if this sort of trend continues where people aren't so satisfied, does that mean there's going to be less people likely to engage with recruitment agency or recruiters, right? Does that then have a knock-on effect in terms of a number of companies that want to then engage with recruitment agencies or recruiters? And what does that mean for the industry moving forward? You know, and it's almost like, I think perhaps it is a point of then going back and saying, well, hold on, unless we do have a more kind of personalized approach, if we are, you know, perhaps we need to talk about, I don't know, candidate satisfaction, you know, as part of our USP as an agency, recruitment agency, to show that we do care, that we do personalize our approach. And even if we're dealing with 10,000 people, we care about making sure that we can help as many of those as possible. You know, it almost feels like something needs to change. And I think it's similar, and we'll touch on things like financial advisors and stuff like that, where, you know, people don't want to be seen as numbers now, right? And I think it's how do you separate yourself on that basis?
I think what's interesting for the recruitment, and also touching upon the other industries that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of weeks, I think what's happened as well from a technology perspective is, in that environment, there's companies that have, you know, created tech specifically for, let's say, managing candidates, but it's very much like numbers driven and limited functionality, no intelligence behind it, right? And it's similarly with real estate and things like that, where there was nothing there. You've got companies that have created platforms that again, limited functionality, limited intelligence, you know, and they've kind of been stuck in that space, right? So because they're so focused in that industry, it hasn't made sense to innovate, right? The platform itself hasn't made sense to innovate. It hasn't made sense to look at things like machine learning. And while while some other possibly, you know, again, this is why it's potentially right for disruption, is while other kind of, you know, startups have kind of, right, well, let's go. Something like ZipRecruiter, for example, in the US, massive, right? This platform that obviously is relatively new. You know, they're kind of trailblazing because they haven't got any legacy. There's not, you know, a system that was specifically designed to do one thing, which was a candidate picture, a candidate, you know, basic. Not now, obviously, which is more. There's more information that's required, right? You know, so there's no intelligence about it. I think that's the same across the industries, right? So if you look at, and you know, we'll talk about real estate and banking, etc. But there's legacy systems in place there, right? There's a reluctance to potentially move, or even an option. Right, there's the options are not there for them, right? You know.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think the challenge is I had a meeting earlier this morning, and the person I had a meet with made a really interesting point. And they're a hospitality focused business, and they said the reason we want to work with you is because of your experience in other industries. Yeah, we just don't want to work with somebody who knows just our industry inside out, because that's not going to help us innovate. That's not going to help us to think differently. Yes, and perhaps that's potentially the same problem, right? Because the chances are for you to create a recruitment platform, you're probably coming from the industry. Yes. Right. And it's, you know, and obviously that helps because you're seeing things in terms of like first-hand issues. And things like that, exactly. Yeah. But what you're probably not seeing is okay, well, what's working elsewhere? What's working in other industries? How have other industries been disrupted? What kind of technology exists that could potentially be applied into this industry? Exactly. And perhaps that is part of a challenge here, you know, because it feels like something needs to change, right? And it doesn't need a survey to tell us that. No. You know, it feels like that's an industry which perhaps hasn't been disrupted in the same way as others. I think before you needed a recruitment agency if you're a serious organization because it was very difficult to reach candidates. Where do you start? Yeah. But because of the tools, the availability, the platforms that exist today, well, it's easier than ever. Yeah. Yeah. And also the openness and access to individuals, because people now are used to this, right? They're used to it. So just from like us in a sales and marketing perspective, where, you know, our comfort level is here now as far as engaging on a digital space. I think the same applies for, you know, recruitment, right? You know, it's kind of, it is now perfectly acceptable to hire remotely and then pull people in, but you've got to do it, right? Because I think the thing is, previously you weren't forced to do certain things, right? You would potentially, I remember back in the day, you know, people flying in for interviews, right? You imagine, you know, getting flown into interviews, or people taking the opportunity to jump on a flight and say, well, I'll go in there and give it a try. You don't need to anymore, right? I mean, there's obviously now you can't to certain countries. So it's kind of like forced people's hands almost. Yeah, but yes, again, for me, that's opportunity, right? Yeah, totally. Yeah. Huge opportunity. Because, because I think perhaps it isn't a case of even maybe, look, and again, this is, I guess, very, I don't know, probably wrong sort of saying this, but if I was to start a recruitment agency tomorrow, I think what I would be doing is saying, okay, look, what are the challenges that exist today? And those challenges are different challenges to what existed 10 years ago. Yeah, definitely. Okay? So where is it? Where is that pain? You know, does an HR manager have pain now? Right? Because maybe if there's more recruitment responsibilities on them than there's ever been. Yeah. If we're talking about kind of recruitment in that kind of, you know, digital space now, and that international recruitment where, okay, it's more than acceptable to hire people from a completely different country, irrespective of whether you've got an office there or not. Well, what can I do there? How can I make that process easier for a company? What kind of local, you know, searches can I do? Is it kind of police reports? Is it, you know, whatever it is, right? That kind of due diligence, which becomes harder across geographies. How does that happen? How do you impact that? I think you and I spoke about this was, you know, the fact is that we got approached by an organization in the UK that vetted candidates based on their social footprint, which was pretty crazy. So, you know, it just like in the wealth management space and things like this, where, you know, organizations will do their due diligence against individuals to see if they're linked to any kind of illicit activity or whatever. It's, as you said, from a police report perspective, from, you know, but also just that social space. You know, we're seeing in the States a lot of
old tweets being lifted up, like when people are at colleges and stuff,
Yeah.
and particular views they may have or political views that are now impacting their kind of job role. So I think it's
what's your thoughts on that, genuinely?
On what?
So let's like we're going to hire somebody, right?
Yeah.
And they've been absolutely brilliant. They've gone through our process. We've done the final interview, but there's a tweet that's been found from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And it goes against everything we believe in as a company.
I think it warrants a discussion.
Right.
I think it warrants a discussion. I don't think you can make a kind of, unless obviously it's pretty,
like
pretty,
people with beards.
Yeah, exactly. Need a wash.
Right.
No, I think and I think the thing is that some of this thing, there's a cancel culture that's going on. It's probably a bigger debate at the moment. Not so much, I mean, it's non-existent here, but in the US and possibly Europe, that cancel culture. I think the thing is you can't take things in isolation.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing you have to look at, right? You can't take things in isolation. There has to be context, and unless it is very much a completely because I guess the thing is on something like that, if you've gone through and done the due diligence of vetting a candidate anyway, and this seems completely out of character, something's got to miss, right? So there's either somebody that's done very well to hide whatever they're hiding from, sure, or it's just, I was a kid and I was just being silly, right? Would you like to have everything like on social for us growing up?
But this is the problem, right? This is exactly
right.
it. Well, firstly, there's no context. Right? Exactly,
no context.
It's just some written words, and you don't know why someone's written that or posted that, or whatever it is, right? I think the second thing is, it was weird. I think it was my last trip to New York.
Right.
So last February, and I was introduced by one of our clients there who said, "Look, I want you to meet this company. They've got a really interesting business." They had a crazy valuation. It was one of the co-founders of LinkedIn who had started a business.
Right.
But it was all on almost like this social forensics type business for candidates.
Right.
Right. Mm. And it was like, what they'll do is they'll scour the net and they'll go through every single possible post that this person could ever have found. And then, it's a platform and it's a system that then helps you do that. And they were like, "This is it. This is the future of recruitment." And I mean, literally, they would say like, "This fixes everything."
Yeah, job done.
And I just threw that out there and I said, "Okay, so basically, where does context come into this?"
Exactly.
Well, because if you're scoring people based on written words,
scary.
I mean, you may as well just start with spelling. Forget about the rest of the stuff, right? I mean, like
grammar police.
Yeah, exactly. But the point is, where do you stop?
Yeah.
Where do you start? Where do you stop?
Yeah.
So I've kind of looked at this and I said, do you know what? People make bad decisions. That's part of learning and growing up. People make mistakes. Well, that's part of learning and growing up. And I'd almost want to hire somebody who had messed up, right? And had seen a better way of doing things, had learned from their mistakes than someone who's got an immaculate track record and has never made a mistake before in their life.
Yeah, that's spooky.
Because where's the learning from that?
Exactly.
No, there's people like that.
Yeah.
There are people like that. Right. And but for me, I don't know. I just feel as if all of that is, it's flawed. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
It goes back to context, right? So I think there's certain things that you can score on. I think there's certain things that you can attribute to either a successful candidate or a non-successful candidate, right? Things that are kind of black and white. So qualifications, experience, how they react to certain information or content that you're giving them, what to gauge their reaction. Yeah. But I think, if you start digging into what they're doing socially, I think as long as it's not criminal activity or anything like that, I think the thing is that pretty much it's not something that you request or you ask, right? You're not going to be sitting there once the individual works for you. That's I think where potentially some of the lines become blurred now is this. Where a lot of organizations do have a hybrid model, where it's kind of personal life and business life overlap. It's what's interestingly, I was speaking to somebody the other day and they've just recently invested in a green screen for their home. And he was saying that, some of the time I'm okay with people seeing my background, with some of the posters and stuff like that. And actually some of the times I'm not. So it's kind of like, depending on who I'm on a call with, for example, I'll put a green screen up or I won't put a green screen up. So I think it's interesting how people are thinking about that now, as far as, there's a window. A good friend of mine during COVID, she had a particularly small apartment because she's in London. And she originally started in her kitchen on the countertop, facing the window and everything, because it looked really nice, but she soon found out that she had to make sure she kept up with the washing up, otherwise it would pile up behind her, be in the background. So, but again, that goes back to, are you going to score someone on a Zoom call if the lighting's bad or the microphone's bad, for example? Because does that come into it? There's no context.
No, it's better. I think it comes down to preferences and what you're like as a person and what you're looking for, right? All right, cool. So look, I think let's kind of try and wrap this up, Andrew. We're a little bit over time, but I mean, in terms of maybe, I don't know, what would your advice be? I think I've kind of given mine. For kind of recruiters or people in the industry.
I think the thing is that we see it a lot in. I think what we see a lot is we see a lot in kind of organizations that are heavily reliant on business development and sales.
Yeah.
And they've basically been doing the same thing the same way for the last, 15 years, right? Or 20 years, because it's kind of seen as a task, right? Got to go and get a sale, got to do this. And no one's really talking to them about how they can improve opportunities or improve activity or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost similar in that recruitment field, right? I've done it like this for the last 15 years. It's worked for me, and it's just comfort level.
Yes.
And I think that's it. So I think the thing is that, there is a wider opportunity now. And I think it's almost a realization that actually, if you don't look at a way to possibly do things differently or improve process or improve candidate selection or improve candidate quality, there's a danger that somebody could swoop in and disrupt the whole industry, right? Because I think the thing is, one of those things that we're looking at over the next few weeks here is these industries do appear to be open for disruption, right? Because they appear to have not moved much.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of, and look, the pandemic has been a catalyst for a lot of things. Right. And I think this is also where people have been reevaluating themselves, their organizations, they're as individuals, and seeing where opportunities are. So I think the thing is that there's a lot of people, talking, probably millions of people, that are actively looking for opportunities now as well. So whereas previously perhaps the target on some of these industries' backs wasn't as big, right? Because it's not sexy, or it's not like, well, how do I disrupt the mini donut industry, right? Or the mini pancakes, good fun, I'm gonna have this, or or craft beer, right? How do I look at that because it's fun and it's something I want to do? No, how do I disrupt that space there, because no one's focusing on it, right? So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Cool. Hack of a week, Andrew. We've got a few minutes.
Yeah, hack of the week. Just got one to talk about. This is a platform that was introduced to us, one of our partners in DXG, Christian. This is something that he uses inside his organization. I'd never seen it before, but it's effectively a collaborative workspace.
Yeah.
So it's something that can be used internally, client facing, but it's notion.so. So notion.so.
And it's very cool. I mean, like literally, if you've got a business where you do work with others, it's almost like a blank canvas in terms of what you can do with it. So whether it's creating processes, whether it's onboarding employees, whether it's creating timetables, project plans, all that kind of stuff. It looks like a very kind of full-on tool that you can customize completely for your business.
Yeah, right? and look, from a price point perspective, obviously from a personal perspective, you can, it's free up to 5 guests if you've got a small team. But if you want to kind of go a bit bigger, it's only $8 a month per team, per member. So fully integrates into Slack. It's got a whole ecosystem of integrated apps, your Googles, your Microsofts, your Zooms, your, all of those things. But I think, very, very cool. And look, they got some big clients. I mean, you got some of these guys on here, like they're talking about Duolingo is one of their clients, a few other kind of nice global brands that are using their platform. So I think it might be quite cool to share this platform. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Good stuff.
Excellent.
Awesome.
So next week, I think we are talking, our deep dive next week is, what's the industry? Damn it, I've lost it. Amazing. And I'm pretty sure, here it is. So next week we're talking banking and credit cards. So I'd say from a trust and customer satisfaction thing, possibly close to the bottom. Don't know many people that have got a positive story in that sense. So I think it'll be good. Good to have a look at that as well. So looking forward to next week.
Cool. I think maybe we can extend it up to wider financial services. I think that'd be quite.
Yeah, banks would just be a bit harsh.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right, mate. Thanks very much,
guys. Thank you
very
in.
much. See you, everyone. Bye.
Care.